Okay. Are
Yeah.
you ready?
Yeah.
Well, from birth to today, I was born to a mother known as a prostitute.
Prostitute. Yeah.
Yeah, prostitute. And gave me to a father who was not my biological father. That came with lots of hatred and many other issues. Anyway, to jump the story, at the age of 12, again talking about my father who was very cruel and violent, I was beaten so severely that I ended up in the hospital. As that sounds like a bad thing, that was my introduction to Christ, because while I was in the hospital,
You had been in a coma too.
yes, I was a bit in a coma, 3 days as I was told. Women visited from an Anglican church as far as I remember, because it was so near. And what I remember was the good words they said. Lovely boy, nice looking and young. That was the first time I had a kind word. And then they prayed in the local language. Now, being a Muslim before, we don't pray in the local language. So I just thought, this God of these people must be a better God, because he understands our local language. But the people themselves are so kind. Anyway.
So you were raised Muslim.
Yeah, I was raised Muslim until that point when I heard about Christ.
Yeah.
From these women. They didn't even preach to me, but their love, their tender hands.
Right. Just going back a little bit, you told me earlier about 3 strikes against you, or two things that are going badly in your life held against you.
The 2 things from childhood were, first, my mother was known as a prostitute. That actually is something you carry on. You grow up having a name of your, like sometimes they called me son of the prostitute.
Right.
And back home, that would be so offensive, so humiliating. It comes with stigma. But the other is when the mother put me in the home of the father who is not my biological father. Once you're known of that, they label you as bastard.
Right.
And that's not a good thing as well.
Right.
So in other words, it's as if you have no belonging and you're a child, son of the prostitute.
Okay, you get to that 3rd strike later.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So age 12, and you got out of the hospital?
Yes, we got into that fight with the father who beat me severely, and I ended up in a coma and in that hospital. And the Christian women used to visit.
Yeah.
That's the first time I'm introduced to Christ.
Yeah.
And another good thing that happened while I was there is my mother showed up for the first time. She left me when I was 6 months. She showed up for the first time, and someone had gone and told her that I was murdered.
Huh.
But then luckily I was put in the hospital. When she kept asking if there was a child abandoned, they said it was me, and she came to me and said, I am your mother. And then I didn't fully believe her because I'd never known her. But she said, I want to go with you. And I was like, if someone can take me away from the cruel father, that's the best thing I can do. Whether she's my mother or not, I am leaving. So I went with her. The unfortunate bit with my mother was she still lived her life of prostitution, bringing in a man. Even as the room was so small, she still had men come in, and as a growing youth in teenage, I couldn't handle that for long. We stayed together for 2 years, but at the age of 14, I had to leave. Even the community was not a good place. She lived near the forest, you would see wild animals. One time I was nearly killed by baboons. Honestly, I was hit by a cobra right in the compound. I survived the python. I mean, there was a lot in my mother's place that I thought I go back to Mbali, where I originally come from. But I ended up back in the family of my Creole father. And I was 16. That's when I made the final decision to become a Christian. And it happened that I am passing on the way, and these loud Pentecostal preachers are shouting so loud on the microphones and saying, what will separate you from the love of Christ? And they counted the whole list of things. Two things actually struck me. One was demons. My father was believed to have owned demons, and if you did anything bad, he could just destroy you using his demons, and I feared. And death, of course. So when they mentioned that those two can't separate us from the love of Christ, and then he ended by saying, if you want to receive Christ, repeat these words. I had said those words before, but I didn't shy to say it again. So I said, and after I finished, I felt a strong conviction to go and tell my family that I had become a Christian. And I kept running. Home was not near, maybe an hour walk. So I kept running, walking up here, and as soon as I arrived, I told them.
And who all was there? You had the kids and...
the family had maybe 35 children from multiple wives. And his wives and the father himself, everyone had. And they were so worried I was going to be killed. Luckily, again, he did not become cruel on that day. He just played it cool. I remember I was told he didn't even have dinner that day. And the following morning, he gathered everyone, and in the presence of all people, he gave me options. I leave and never come back, or repent to everyone that I joked, but it came with a fine, which I didn't have, or stay and be killed by evening. The easier was, I leave.
Yeah. And also, just explain the fact that he was Muslim, but he also delved into witchcraft and how that was common.
That was common. That is still very common up to now, that someone publicly identifies as a Muslim, but back home they do other worships that is not acceptable in the Muslim faith. And that's very common with most people back home. Even some Christians can say, I am Christian, they go to church, but really when it comes to worship, they still do sacrifices that are done in the local animism.
Thank you, that helps a lot. Now tell us what happened when you left home then at that point.
When I left, the story was only bad for a short time, because while I didn't have a home, I had to stay with the lepers for 3 days. But actually, the living started turning the story into a good one, because I first lived with a Christian family who were part of the preaching. When they saw that it was me, they put me into their home.
Saw you on the streets and...
Yeah. So then I looked for work. Even as I was young, I wanted to survive. So I looked for work, and I found work in the Baptist missionaries' home. They came actually from Dallas. But they are gone by now because they were old people. And they loved me so much that they allowed me to work part-time, but go back to school for part-time, and I loved that.
Right.
After completing all levels, I joined the seminary later, and hoping that I was going to be a pastor. But then after seminary, as a young man, my interest for being a pastor stopped. I started looking for more employment. So I did another course. And after I finished that course, I found work, got married. Life continued being better and better and better. In fact, up to now, back home, we are not poor people. But after marriage, and we have 3 children.
And you're living in the capital city of Uganda.
In Kampala, yes.
Doing pretty well.
Yes, we worked for an American organization called the World Concern International, and they were paying us both very well.
And you told me earlier you felt a bitterness about your hometown.
Oh, exactly.
Because of all the rejection over the years and the cruelty.
Very true, very true. I never ever thought I would go back to my community and belong there again. Because I grew up as a rejected person. And then finally I'm kicked out of my home. My mother comes and she puts me into the new family saying, actually this is your biological father. And the mother in the new home says, I won't stand a child with such misfortunes to come and become the firstborn son here.
I got you.
So when I left the second time, I told myself, nobody wants me here. I belong to nobody. And that was what I lived with for so many years.
Before you go further, just to backtrack, I mean, that was clearly God's conviction power in your life to have the desire to go tell this Muslim family that you were a Christian, because that was considered kind of a curse too, to be part of a white person's religion, I think you were telling me.
Yes.
And, but you went back, you told me weeping, as you told the whole family, all his wives and the children, and then finally him.
Yeah, so. Well, the weeping was for 2 reasons. One was when we came back, we were doing very okay, but the community looked so poor. And as a child, that was my home that I found looking like that. So I was grieving for the loss.
So y'all went back, as a married person, you went back to your hometown.
Yes.
And made that visit and they were, and what was the response of the village when they saw you?
And they saw me like a celebrity. They saw me as a king almost.
Because you're driving a car.
Exactly, and looked healthy, and so they called each other to come and see me. And even the Muslim father's family was down the road. That's where we first stopped.
Wow.
They were so welcoming. They were weeping to receive me back. And to me, what broke me was, what is special about me now as opposed to the time you rejected me? Everyone seems to say this is our son, but this is the very person you rejected. So in my mind, I was like, maybe they think I have money, now I can help. And that's how I am accepted. So even as everyone was embracing me, deep inside, I was not taking that as a good thing.
And that was about 15 years. You were gone 15 years or more from your town.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I went to my biological father's home. And everyone welcomed me in the same, hugging me. All the children, stepchildren, had heard about me. And this time they are all crowding to touch and feel me like a very special person. And instead of being happy, I was still bitterly crying because I'm thinking, I am the same one you rejected. It's not anything new, it's me. Yeah. So I didn't say that, but deep inside, I was like, even when you do that, I don't want to come back and be here.
And how did you find Mbali when you came back? It was doing well when you left the town, but what was the conditions of the town?
So Mbali was a home to the British colonialists, and it was a clean place. And then the mountain where I lived, we have many waterfalls, and there were trees and all species of birds and animals. The time we came back, none of those things were there. All the trees were cut down. Everything that looked clean was just a mess. That was another thing that made me grieve. I was like, what happened? But I realized so many people had died of HIV/AIDS. Because when I left, HIV was not hard off. But while I was away in the city, that is the time HIV started in early 80s, maybe 84. And then so many people had died between 84 to 90, whatever.
And some of that is, of course, sexual morality, but you mentioned earlier also that circumcision rite done on young men with unclean knives was also contributing to a lot of death.
Exactly.
Okay. And so y'all left. You stayed a couple of days. You were greeted. It was kind of, it made you bitter in a sense because they were greeting you and receiving you because you'd done so well.
Yes.
And Grace was with you. Grace had not grown up there. She grew up a little ways away, same tribe,
But she had worked actually in the same city, Mbale. That's where she met George and Judy Gomol in the same city. And then they moved to the city in Kampala.
Okay.
But they started in Mbale, so she knew the story of Mbale. And Mbale as well becomes the capital of our region, our district.
Yeah.
So we all shared the grief of the once clean town now looking very horrible.
And meanwhile, back in Kampala, in earlier years, Grace was discipled by Judy, the Navigators, discipleship. You, through the Baptist missionary couple, and then through seminary and university, you got Christian education and the seminary. So then what happened? You went back to Kampala?
Yeah, because we were working and earning very well, so we went back to our normal daily life. And I ignored everything I saw, and we never talked about it. Well, 3 months later, after our visit, that's when I started hearing almost like a voice, a video running in my mind. And I'm going like, that community is so bad now. And people live in very poor conditions. Those children, who cares for them? And quickly my mind was like, well, that family up there have had good education. They should come back and help their community. And while I was thinking like that, I literally heard a voice, as if a voice in the mind, as if a voice around, but saying, don't blame them alone. You've exactly done the same. You can as well go back and help. And in my mind, I'm like, no, that's not God. That's the devil. Because God knows how I was treated in that community. Can't say that. So when I went to Grace and said, this strange thing is going into my mind. And, I'm not the type like I hear God speaking. Generally, I hear people say, God has said, but in my experience, I haven't heard so much like God is speaking. But that time is when I heard for the first time as if someone is speaking to me. So I told Grace, my wife, and she looked into my face and said, you're hearing it for the first time today. I have heard this for the last 3 months since we left in Bali. It was as if my body came back to Kampala and my spirit, my heart remained on the streets with the children in Mbali.
So many children living on the streets.
So many children at that point. And I was like, no, you're kidding. And she said, exactly. Maybe I haven't heard the voice literally like you, but I've been thinking about them all the time. And to cut the long story short, that's when we thought God is calling us to go back to Mbali. At that point, it wasn't about my community really, because I had made a point. Even when I go back to Mbali, We live downtown and no business with my own community.
Up in the towards the mountains.
Towards the mountain. But while we were in Mbale, it kept growing bigger, and we realized actually God was saying, back into your own community.
Heavily Muslim area and poor.
And
uneducated.
Ancestral worship, local animism.
Right.
Yeah. And when we started thinking about the things we wanted to do, the need was most identified in the community where I came from. And that's when we made the decision.
What kind of ministries did y'all do back at the...
We started with the 2 ministries. One was a children's ministry. And it started with just send our children to go and talk to those children who are suffering, who are on the streets. And then we bring them to church and then gather adults to just laugh and play with them and so on and so on. And then quickly we thought, but when we play with them, they still go back on the street anyway. And life on the street for little children was very hard. How do we find them a home? We said there are too many, you can't have a home for these children. We better find where they came from and take them back to where they came from. And then we realized, okay, we also have people who are suffering with HIV/AIDS, but they can't go to be tested and get medication because of stigma. So we started the children ministry and people living with HIV/AIDS, and our part was to help them overcome the fear of walking on the street alone, to go and get tested and get free medication.
Yeah.
But then what led to starting the church was we realized their faith, their practice of circumcision, their whole way of living
ritual,
is contributing
to
this. That has to be dealt with as well.
And it was a ritual, animistic
Yes.
circumcision rite, not normal circumcision.
Exactly.
Right.
So it was like their faith has to be challenged so that they learn something new that will help them live better. And we knew it's only through Christ.
So the church was started.
The church was started.
Bethel.
Exactly.
And just real quickly, too, I think you mentioned Grace had a heart for the children because she lost her father to Idi Amin when she was very young.
Exactly.
And lived a really, really hard life. And then you felt you had rejection and abuse all of your childhood.
Yes.
So that contributed. What happened next as far as the development of the church or of the ministry on the streets? Other things that happened?
So the church started growing, but we also started, before even the church, we started a ministry called JENGA, Community Development Outreach. And honestly, the children ministry in JENGA has grown even bigger. Up to now, we reach thousands of children. Not everyone is from the street, but that has to be prevented, and it is only prevented when you speak to the children, speak to the parents and guardians to help them learn newer, better skills, Christ-based skills of love, so that children should not end up on the street. And the health program has grown beyond just HIV/AIDS to training people to live better lives by avoiding to eat badly poor, like inhygienic food.
Right.
And so our aim is to improve on the quality of life, and that has helped people's whole well-being to change for better.
And tell about Grace's ministry with the women in industries.
She has done so well, and now she also has a program, but that is at church, called Young Moms. But these are single young girls between 12 or even less, and 18 who end up being pregnant. And when they become pregnant and they are not married, their parents or relatives force them out of home to go and marry or leave home because that is shameful. And they end up no money. They sell themselves for commercial sex. And that's how they are dying even more. And Grace thought, no, there can be better skills for them to make money than selling themselves. And so she's teaching them how to make hair, dressing, and tailoring, like seamstress, as well as catering skills, but more to do with even house chore work, so that they can do that on a professional level, and someone can hire them to work in their house. And that has become so successful as well.
And talk about the church, what y'all done up the mountains, as far as starting churches and so forth. What are y'all up to?
Yeah, we started with one church, and we realized one church is not enough because people don't drive. And the spiritual atmosphere cut across the mountain. So to look at the area, we thought we needed 12 churches to cover this area. And the church are not just church Sunday, but train the leaders to be the type of person who will get into their communities and help their communities to live a better life. Not only better Christian life, but daily life. And that's what we are doing. We train our leaders ourselves.
And the pastors, you had to give theological education because most of them couldn't afford, or y'all probably couldn't afford to send them all to seminary.
Yes. And they can't afford, but we have sent people to be trained so that we come back and train them from the local community. We even have now 2 people in our church. We pay them very little, but they go even to every single pastor and walk alongside them to train them on job, which is different from the classroom. But they come and work with this pastor in the community and keep saying, this is handled like this is done like this. Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else you can think of we need to know about JENGA or the church ministry?
Both JENGA and the church need your prayers. Sometimes this life can be so lonely because when you're there, people think you have money, you have a solution to everything. And we know we can only do so much, not everything. And that can become so overwhelming. As much as we, as me and my wife, are not really poor, we manage to survive because we work, we have skills. But then other people, church members, see us as richer, and everyone comes with their needs and all that.
Can be overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. It puts you sometimes in a very lonely place.
Yeah. Prayers will be
very, very, very important.
Yeah.
But now talking about what we shall say on Sunday, sometimes even having a person from here come and visit or join us in the work.
Yeah.
Whatever God gives them to do with us, it's all welcome.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor, so much. Vinnie Munyosi and Grace are here visiting, and thank you. God bless you.
So nice to be here.